Have you ever stopped and wondered, if ancient civilizations had this deep wisdom, something that really connected science, art, and, well, the whole cosmos? Like, what if there was this incredible system, almost like a blueprint for everything? Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to give you that shortcut to being well informed, digging into fascinating sources, and pulling out the key insights. Today, we're diving into something really quite special excerpts from a text called Mayan's Aintiram.
Right, and this specific source, it's a 1997 publication by Dr. S.P. Sabarathnam. And it's really quite something. It gives you the original Tamil text by Mayan, but crucially, with detailed English translations and explanations. It actually came out during the Second International Seminar on Mayan Science and Technology, so it provides this pretty rare glimpse into a really profound ancient way of thinking.
Okay, so our mission for this deep dive is clear. We want to explore how this Aintiram, which the source flat out calls a cosmological science of Mayan, how it can give you a shortcut to understanding a really key part of ancient Indian thought. We're aiming to connect the huge scale, the macrocosm, with our own experience, the microcosm, and hopefully uncover some genuinely surprising facts along the way, right? We've set the mission, dive into Aintiram, so maybe the best place to start is what is Aintiram exactly? Why is it seen as so important?
Okay, yeah. So fundamentally, Aintiram isn't just, an old book. It's framed as the essential blueprint for understanding cosmic order and, well, human creation in ancient India. The source calls it a cosmological science of Mayan, like you said, an ancient body of knowledge described as having very great importance and deep antiquity. It's held in such high regard, its status in Tamil literature is actually compared to Panini's Ashtadhyayi, which, for listeners, is a massively important Sanskrit grammar text. It's also said to infuse another major Tamil work, the Tolkappiyam, with its core ideas. And get this, even Hanuman, from the Ramayana, even he is said to have mastered it, which really gives you a sense of its perceived historical and maybe even spiritual significance.
Wow, okay, Hanuman too. And the source mentions this figure, Mayan. Who was he supposed to be? What's his story?
Well, Mayan is presented as, frankly, a monumental figure, the father of all sciences, an old world architect, the supreme master architect, builder, and sculptor of this whole Mayanic tradition.
That's quite the title, Father of All Sciences. How does the source back that up? Does it give examples of how he combined science and technology?
It does, yeah. It really emphasizes that for Mayan, science and technology weren't separate things. They were like completely intertwined. Take the Vastu Purusha mandala. We often think of it as just, an architectural grid.
Right.
But here, it's explicitly described as representing the entire universe, not just a plan, but an embodiment of cosmic principles.
So it's more than just drawing squares on a piece of paper.
Exactly. The sources are really clear. This is presented as a science of India, originated by Mayan, and it's considered fundamental for understanding the Indian cultural ethos, right up there alongside texts like the Vedas, the Agamas, and the Vastu Shastras themselves.
That's fascinating. It's a science that's also so deeply cultural. Now, you mentioned something, or rather, the text gets into this core numerical idea, right? The word Antiram itself apparently means something like 5 designs or 5-fold functions. What does that tell us?
It tells us a whole lot, actually. The central idea here is that this system sees the universe as being fundamentally organized around the number 5. This pentatic 5-fold scheme is described as being everywhere, absolutely pervasive. It starts with basics like the Panchabuddha, the 5 elements, earth, water, fire, air, space, the building blocks, and also the Panchadriya, which are our 5 senses, how we perceive that reality.
Okay, so it's not just abstract. It shows up in real things. You mentioned the Panchaloha, 5 metals, and Panchaswara, 5 musical notes, and even planets. Panchagraha, 5 planets, sun, moon, and these 2 Chayagrahas. What are those for people who might not know?
Good question. The Chayagrahas, or shadow planets, they refer to Rahu and Ketu. In astronomy, they're the lunar nodes, basically the points where the moon's orbit crosses the path of the sun, the ecliptic. They aren't physical bodies like Mars or Jupiter, but in this system, they're considered really significant astrological points.
Okay, the nodes. Got it.
And this 5-fold thing, it even shapes art. The famous dance of Nataraja, Shiva's cosmic dance, it's called Panchakritya Thandava, or Prapanchanatana. That name directly links it to 5 functions or actions, signifying the fundamental mechanics of space based on this very 5-part system.
So it goes from the cosmic through the elements, senses, even planets, right down to artistic expression.
And practical living, too. The source explained how this whole cosmological framework informs how you design things.
Mm.
Utilitarian visual forms, cities, villages, buildings, even furniture and vehicles.
Yeah.
The idea is to design them so humans can live in harmony with nature, aligning with this underlying five-fold structure.
Right, aligning human creations with the cosmic order.
Precisely. And you see concrete examples, like those amazing rock temples at Mamallapuram, UNESCO World Heritage Site. The source says they aren't just 5 random temples. They represent 5 distinct types, each linked to a specific region and its deity. You have Kerinci region linked to Muruga, Malai to Mayan, Murudam to Indran, Needle to Siva, and Palai to Kotravai. It's a whole integrated system.
That's incredibly thorough, from the universe down to specific temples representing regional energies, all tied to 5. So if that's the underlying numerical principle, how does it translate into the actual, physical designs or energetic patterns the text talks about? It mentions some specific geometric patterns, doesn't it? The 64 squares and something called the Manduka Mandala. What's the deal with those?
Ah, yes. This is where it gets really visually interesting. The source explains that this dynamism of 8 units, it leads to the creation of a square frame made of 64 smaller squares. And that is the Manduka Mandala.
Okay, 8 units, 8 times 8 is 64. Makes sense.
Exactly. And this 64-square grid isn't just a pattern. It's seen as the graphic and atomic structure of the whole cosmos.
Yes.
It's the basic design, the source says, for both inner space, like within us, and outer space.
Wow. So one pattern for everything, essentially, microscopic and cosmic.
That's the idea presented, yeah. And right at the very center of this 64-square grid, there's the primal dot, the Mula Puli. And fascinatingly, it's described as being actually square in shape itself. Not a point, but a tiny square.
A square dot. Interesting.
And this primal dot, the central square, is seen as the source of all form and structure. It's directly linked to the Bindu or the Garbhagriha, the absolute holiest central spot in a temple, the womb chamber.
Okay, the source point, the core.
And then building on that, Mayan introduces this concept called the microbode, which is pretty mind-bending. You take that 64-square frame, the mandala. The microbode is described as its minutest condensed cubic version.
Cubic, so 3D.
Yes, exactly. A tiny cube embodying the whole pattern. It's called a space fetus. And the idea is that this microbode gives rise to both the temple of man, our physical bodies, and the temple of God, the actual sacred buildings.
So the same essential pattern manifests as us and as temples.
That's the connection being made. And there's this image of a luminous thread or thread of consciousness, the Brahma Sutra, moving rhythmically inside this tiny cube. And that rhythmic movement is the cosmic dance of Nataraja.
Wow. That's incredibly intricate, like a fractal structure where the smallest part holds the key to the whole thing.
It really is. And what's crucial, as you mentioned, is that this isn't presented as just myth or philosophy. It's laid out as signs of manifestation, how forms come into being based on these geometric and energetic principles. It really does challenge how we usually separate science from art or spirituality today.
Absolutely. And this deep understanding of form and geometry, this universal blueprint, it doesn't stop there, does it? It also tackles time and space themselves. Mayan apparently had a pretty radical way of looking at time.
Oh, absolutely. Very different from our usual linear clock time. Mayan defines time, quite strikingly, as the vibration of space.
Vibration of space. What does that even mean?
Well, think about it. Instead of time being this separate thing that flows through space, Mayans suggest time is the activity of space itself. Like space is vibrating, and that vibration is time, and that vibration brings things into existence.
So time isn't passive, it's creative.
Exactly. It's an active force. The source says time is the vibration of space that puts forth or gives rise to phenomena, and he connects them directly. Space measure is equal to time measure. They aren't separate. They're co-extensive, co-eval, and co-present, always together.
That's a mind bender. Space and time is basically 2 aspects of the same vibrating reality.
And even the Tamil word for time, kalam, is apparently linked etymologically to vibration or sound.
And they had really fine measurements for this time vibration, didn't they? Beyond seconds and minutes.
Oh, yes. The source mentions incredibly subtle units, like the imel, the time it takes for the twinkling of an eye, or the nodal, the snapping of a finger. And it scales up, too. There's this fascinating idea that 1 terrestrial year, 1 Earth year, equals just 1 celestial day, a day for the gods, so to speak.
Wow, so a completely different scale of time perception built into the cosmology.
And this interconnectedness brings in another vital element, sound.
Right, because if time is vibration, vibration often means sound.
Precisely. The source states that sound and light always move hand in hand. They're inseparable aspects of this creative vibration. And the core concept is the creative basic sound O, that primal hum, the vibration that underlies everything.
OM as the fundamental frequency of creation.
Yes. And it goes deeper. Even letters, the basic units of language, aren't just abstract symbols. They're tied directly to light and sound energy. They're classified by their sound quality: harsh, soft, medium. And the source claims that the sound of each letter actually pervades the whole universe.
The sound of an A or a B fills the cosmos.
That's the assertion. It aims to create this total identity between the universe and the standa and the human body. Kinda. A complete resonance.
So let's try and wrap our heads around this. What Aintiram seems to be presenting is, well, it's a totally unified view of reality, isn't it? You've got space, time, rhythm, form, matter. They're not separate categories. They're all seen as these energetic, creative factors. And it all seems to stem from that underlying dynamism of 8 and the 64 square mandala pattern. It's almost like an ancient grand unified theory, but expressed through geometry, art, and architecture.
That's a really good way to put it. It's incredibly holistic.
So as we finish this deep dive, it really feels like Mayan's Aintiram presents this astonishingly comprehensive vision. It connects ancient wisdom with principles that feel almost scientific in a way that just cuts across how we usually divide knowledge today.
Absolutely. If you step back and look at the big picture, Aintiram offers this seamless integration: cosmology, science, art, the human experience. It's all woven together. It really makes you think, doesn't it, about how interconnected these fields might actually be fundamentally, perhaps on a vibrational level, as the text suggests. It's certainly a unique lens for looking at patterns in the universe.
And for you, our listener, what does this all mean? What's the takeaway here? Maybe consider this. How could the ancient wisdom of Aintiram, with its deep focus on these five-fold functions and the dynamism of 8, could that offer you a different framework, a new way to maybe notice or understand patterns in your own life and the world around you? How might recognizing these underlying structures, these ideas about time as vibration, space having a geometry, consciousness woven into form, as Mayan described, how might that shift your perception?
Yeah.
Your sense of creativity or order or even harmony in the world? Something to think about.